This story is going to sound paranoid. I know that, but I'm going to stick to only the details that matter. I'm 23 years old. I moved back home 6 months ago after finishing grad school. My parents still live in the same house I grew up in. 2 stories, corner lot, quiet neighborhood. Not gated, not isolated, just normal. If you're picturing trimmed lawns, porch lights left on overnight, the occasional dog barking at nothing, that's exactly it. As for the layout, this is important. My bedroom is on the 2nd floor, facing the backyard. There's a large oak tree about 15 feet from my window. My parents' room is directly below mine, and there's a narrow side yard between our house and the neighbor's fence. Barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through comfortably. That's all you need to know. The reason I'm writing this is because 3 nights ago, I realized something has been in that side yard for a long time, and I don't think it's human. The first strange thing happened about 8 years ago. I was 15. It was summer, and I had a bad habit of staying up too late on my phone. Around 1:30 a.m., I heard something outside my window. Not loud, just deliberate, like someone slowly dragging their hand along the wooden fence. I remember freezing and holding my breath. I told myself it was probably a raccoon or branches scraping in the wind, but there was no wind. The sound stopped right below my window. Then I heard 3 soft taps on the glass. Not random, not scattered. 3 evenly spaced knocks. I didn't move. I didn't look. I just stayed under my blanket until I must have fallen asleep from exhaustion. The next morning, there was nothing outside. No footprints, no scratches, nothing out of place. I convinced myself I dreamed it. Nothing happened again for years. Fast forward to when I was 19. My parents were out of town for the weekend, and I had the house to myself. Around midnight on the 2nd night, our dog started growling at the back door. Not barking, just a low, sustained growl I'd never heard from her before. I checked the backyard lights from the kitchen. They were off. When I flipped them on, I expected to see an animal bolt away. Nothing moved, but something felt wrong. The dog wouldn't step near the sliding glass door. She kept staring toward the narrow side yard. That space is mostly hidden from view unless you physically walk down it. And for some reason, I decided to. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped outside. The backyard was quiet. Too quiet. No crickets, no distant traffic, just silence. When I reached the entrance to the side yard, I hesitated. The space between the house and the fence looked darker than the rest of the yard. Like the light just stopped there. I took 1 step inside, then another. About halfway down, I noticed something on the ground near the base of the oak tree. It was a small pile of pebbles, stacked, not randomly scattered, stacked in a neat little tower. I didn't recognize them from our landscaping. They looked like river stones, smooth, dark, wet-looking. I crouched down to touch them, and that's when I heard breathing. Behind me, slow, close. I spun around so fast I almost fell. The flashlight beam shook violently, scanning the narrow space. Nothing, just fence, siding, shadows, but I could still hear it. Inhale, exhale, not from a yard, from above. I slowly tilted the flashlight upward, and for half a second, I swear this on everything, I saw fingers curled over the edge of my 2nd floor windowsill. My window, the one directly above us. The fingers disappeared instantly. I ran back inside and locked every door. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I checked my window from inside my room. It was locked. The screen was intact. There were no marks on the siding. And the pebbles? Gone. I told my parents when they got back. My dad walked the perimeter of the house. My mom insisted it was stress, imagination, maybe a trick of light. We installed motion lights along the side yard after that. Nothing triggered them for months. Then small things started happening. Tools from the garage would be moved slightly out of place. The trash bins would be nudged a few inches from where we left them. Once I found muddy water dripping down the exterior wall beneath my window, even though it hadn't rained in days. Still, we had no proof of anything. Until last week, it was around 2:45 a.m. I woke up suddenly. No sound had woken me. No nightmare. I was just awake and aware. I had this overwhelming feeling that someone was standing outside my window, watching. I didn't move at first. My blinds were partially open, and faint moonlight filtered through. I could see the outline of the oak tree swaying slightly. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The tree wasn't swaying. Something else was. Between the branches and my window. A shape. Tall. Too tall. It wasn't pressed against a glass. It was standing back maybe 3 or 4 feet away. Just enough that I could make out a silhouette. It looked thin, long-limbed, head slightly tilted, and it wasn't moving. I reached slowly for my phone on the nightstand, trying not to make the mattress shift. The second my hand touched it, the shape moved. Not away, closer. It didn't step forward. It just elongated, like it unfolded. Its head rose higher into view. I gasped I couldn't help it. And in that split second, it snapped downward out of sight, so fast it didn't look natural. It didn't climb down. It didn't run. It dropped. But there was no sound of impact. No footsteps. Nothing. I forced myself to the window after a full minute of silence. I threw the blinds open. The backyard was empty. The motion lights were still off. The side yard was dark. But at the base of the oak tree, directly below my window, was another stack of pebbles. Only this time, there were 3 separate towers, evenly spaced, like the 3 knocks from years ago. My dad called the police the next day. They searched the yard, took a report, suggested maybe someone had been trespassing, maybe a prank. But here's the part one haven't told them. Last night, I checked something I should have checked years ago. The exterior wall beneath my window. There are faint indentations in the siding. Parallel, repeated, like something has been climbing up and down that exact spot for years. Over and over and over. I don't think it wants to break in. I think it just wants me to know it can. This is the only time I've ever been afraid of my own building. I live in an older apartment complex on the outskirts of town. Nothing fancy. 3 floors, long interior hallways, laundry room at the end, that kind of place. I've been here for almost 4 years, and I know the normal sounds when the pipes knock, which neighbor slams their door, which floorboard outside my unit creaks. I don't scare easily, especially not at home. The night this happened, I'd just gotten back from work around 9:30. It had been a long shift. I remember feeling drained, but not upset, just ready to shower and sleep. Everything felt completely routine. That's probably why what happened next hit me so hard. Around 10:15, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my door. That part wasn't unusual. People come and go, but these footsteps were slow, measured. They weren't approaching and passing. They were lingering. I muted my TV and listened. The steps would move a few feet, stop, then move again. Not pacing, not walking normally, just drifting. At first, I assumed someone was on the phone, maybe looking for their keys. But after about 2 minutes, the pattern didn't change. Slow steps. Pause. Slow steps. And then they stopped directly outside my door. Not outside my neighbor's. Mine. I waited for the sound of a knock. Nothing. Just silence. I told myself I was overthinking it. So I turned the TV volume back up slightly. Almost immediately, I heard something else. A faint scratching sound. Not at the door handle. Lower. Closer to the bottom of the door. Like someone dragging something lightly across the wood. I froze. It lasted maybe 5 seconds. Then stopped. I walked quietly to my door and checked the peephole. The hallway was empty. Completely empty. The overhead lights were on, same as always. No movement. No shadows. I stood there longer than I want to admit, just waiting for someone to step into view. But no one did. Eventually, I convinced myself it was probably someone upstairs, and the acoustics just made it sound closer. I locked the deadbolt anyway. The second sound was worse because it didn't make sense. Around 11 o'clock, I was in the shower when I heard a thud. Not loud, just enough to feel through the bathroom floor. It sounded like something heavy had been set down right outside my apartment. I shut off the water immediately. Silence. Then 3 slow knocks. Not on my door, on the wall. The wall that connects my living room to the hallway. 3 evenly spaced knocks. I didn't move. My first thought was maybe a neighbor was hammering something. But it was too deliberate, too controlled. After about 30 seconds, I stepped out, threw on a towel, and walked into the living room. Nothing. No more noise. I checked the peephole again. Empty hallway. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There was something on the floor outside my door. right in front of it. I couldn't see clearly through the peephole because of the angle, but there was definitely an object sitting there. Small, dark. I didn't open the door. I just stood there staring at it through that tiny fisheye lens, trying to figure out what I was looking at. It didn't move. After a full minute, I unlocked the deadbolt, opened the door slowly, and looked down. It was rock, a smooth palm-sized stone, sitting directly against my door. There are no landscaping rocks inside this building. None. The hallway is fully enclosed. I looked left, looked right, empty. I picked up the rock. It was cold. There was nothing written on it. No note, no explanation. I closed the door and locked it again. That's when I heard footsteps, not in the hallway, inside the apartment above me. I've never heard anyone upstairs before. The unit above mine has been vacant for months. I know this because the property manager told me when I renewed my lease. They were renovating it, but now, clear as day, I heard someone walking across the ceiling. Slow, heavy steps, back and forth, back and forth. I stepped into the hallway and looked up at the ceiling. Like that would help. The footsteps stopped immediately. Total silence. I waited. Nothing. I grabbed my phone and texted the property manager. Is someone in 3B tonight? No response. About 10 minutes passed. I stayed in my living room. Lights on, TV off. Then I heard it again, but this time it wasn't walking. It sounded like something being dragged across the floor upstairs. Long, slow, scraping, from one end of the apartment to the other. I could feel it vibrating faintly through the ceiling. That's when my phone buzzed. It was the property manager. Number 3B is still empty. Can help you? I didn't know what to say. Before I could reply, the scraping stopped. And then, directly above where I was standing, I heard 3 knocks. The exact same pattern as before. 3 evenly spaced knocks from the ceiling. I didn't stay to think. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment. The hallway was empty, but it didn't feel empty. As soon as I stepped outside, I looked down automatically. No rock. The spot where it had been was bare. I locked my door and walked toward the stairwell. Halfway down the hall, I heard a door close behind me. Not mine. Somewhere back near my unit. I turned around. All the doors were shut. No one in sight. I stood there for a second, listening, trying to catch any sign of movement. That's when I heard it. A soft whistle, coming from the far end of the hallway. Low, casual, like someone trying to sound normal. There was no one there. The lights flickered once. Just once. I don't remember deciding to run, but I did. I took the stairs 2 at a time and didn't stop until I was outside in the parking lot. I stood there for a while, just staring up at the building. My apartment was on the 2nd floor. The unit above mine was dark. No lights, no movement. I never went back inside that night. I slept in my car. The next morning, I went to the leasing office. They told me something I still can't explain. The unit above mine, 3B, hadn't just been vacant for months. It had been empty for almost 2 years. The last tenant broke their lease suddenly, according to the manager. They complained about someone knocking from inside the walls. No one moved in after that. I moved out 2 weeks later. I never got an explanation for the footsteps or the rock, but sometimes when I think about that night, one detail bothers me more than anything else. I never told the property manager about the 3 knocks, not the ones on the wall, not the ones on the ceiling. So there's no reason she should have ended our conversation by saying, "If you hear knocking again, don't answer it." This happened about 12 years ago when I was 17, and I still think about it more often than I'd like to admit. It was the summer before my senior year of high school. My parents had just started working opposite shifts to save money, which meant I was home alone most nights. We lived in a quiet neighborhood in western Pennsylvania, the kind of place where nothing ever really happens. No crime, no drama. Just rows of identical houses and streetlights that buzzed faintly after dark. At first, being alone at night felt like freedom. I could stay up as late as I wanted, watch whatever I wanted, eat whatever I wanted. But after the first week, I started noticing something small. Something I told myself wasn't a big deal. Every night around 1:30 a.m., I'd hear 3 slow knocks. Not on the front door, not on my bedroom door, on the wall behind my bed. the wall that faced the outside of the house. The first time it happened, I thought it was a tree branch, even though there weren't any trees close to that side of the house. The second time, I thought maybe it was pipes expanding or something settling. But it wasn't random. It was always 3 knocks, evenly spaced. Knock, 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 and then nothing. After about 4 nights of this, I mentioned it to my dad while he was getting ready for work. He barely looked up from tying his boots. "It's just the house," he said. "Old places make noise." The thing is, our house wasn't old. It had been built in 2004. When I pointed that out, he just shrugged and left. That night, I decided to stay up and wait for it. I turned off my lights around midnight and just lay there staring at the wall. I remember checking my phone. 1:28 a.m., then 1:29. At exactly 1:30, it happened. Clear as day. Not inside the wall. Not creaking. It sounded like knuckles. I sat up immediately and pressed my ear against the drywall. Silence. Then, after maybe 10 seconds, I heard something else. A slow dragging sound, like something moving along the outside of the house. That was the first time I felt actual fear. The next morning, I went outside to check. I expected to see scratch marks or maybe footprints in the dirt. There was nothing. No damage. No mud. No sign that anyone had even stepped near the wall. And here's the part that really bothered me. My bedroom window was on that wall. If someone had been knocking, they would have been standing directly under it. But my window didn't have a screen. It had been removed years ago and never replaced, which meant if someone was out there, they could have just looked in. That night, I locked my window for the first time in years. The knocks came again. Same time, same rhythm. This time, I forced myself to move. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and yanked the curtain aside. There was no one there, but my light caught something on the glass. Fingerprints, not smudges from me. These were larger, spread wide, like someone had pressed their whole hand against the window. From the outside. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I called my mom at work. I expected her to freak out. Instead, she went quiet. Not confused. Not concerned. Quiet. Then she said something that didn't make sense. "Is it 3 knocks?" she asked. I remember my stomach dropping. I said yes. She told me to make sure the doors were locked and then change the subject. Completely. When I pushed her, she snapped at me and said I was imagining things. That's when I realized something was off. A few nights later, it escalated. I was half asleep when the knocks came again, 1:30 on the dot. But this time, after the 3rd knock, there was a pause. And then 3 more. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. That had never happened before. Then my phone buzzed on my nightstand. I almost screamed. It was a notification from our home security app. Motion detected, backyard. We didn't even have cameras back there. I opened the app anyway. The backyard camera was black. Not dark, not blurry, just black, like it was covered. While I was staring at the screen, another notification came in. Front door unlocked. I ran to my bedroom door and locked it. I didn't hear the front door open. I didn't hear footsteps in the house. But I heard something worse. 3 knocks on my bedroom door. Slow, deliberate, exactly the same rhythm. Knock, knock, knock. I called my dad immediately. He didn't answer. The knocking didn't continue. It didn't turn into pounding. It didn't escalate. It just stopped, like it had gotten what it wanted. I stayed locked in my room until sunrise. My parents got home that morning. The front door was still locked. The security app showed no history of being opened. And when I told him about the bedroom door, my dad went pale. He asked me something very specific. "Did you open it?" I said no. He nodded slowly, like that confirmed something. That afternoon, my parents had a long argument in the kitchen. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. I heard my mom say, "It's happening again." Again. That word stuck with me. A week later, we moved. No explanation. No discussion. Just packed up and left. Years later, I asked my mom about it. She denied everything. Said I must have had stress-induced hallucinations. But I did some digging. Turns out, The family who built that house had a son. He died in his bedroom, 17 years old. Cause of death never publicly released. Guess which room had been mine? I don't believe in ghosts. I really don't. I think there are logical explanations for most things. Maybe someone was messing with us. Maybe the security system glitched. Maybe I imagined parts of it. But here's what I can't explain. The new owners of that house listed it for sale less than a year after moving in. And in the listing photos, I could see my old bedroom window. No screen. And if you zoomed in close enough, there were faint smudges on the outside of the glass, spread wide, like a hand. I still wake up sometimes at 1:30 a.m. And when I do, I lie perfectly still, waiting for 3 knocks.